Hello there. Hi, this is Alan English, actor, writer, and autism trainer. And this is the second of my autism tutorials, and it's called Getting a Diagnosis. Now, my own journey to getting a diagnosis began at age 5 with a diagnosis, later retracted, of schizotypal disorder. Now, I had mental health problems that became fully apparent by age 10, when, after years of bullying and social problems, I made a threat to the class that I was going to kill myself, and led to my first encounter with a psychologist. I finally got my diagnosis of autism, or Asperger's syndrome as it was called then, age 16. And this was after handing the psychologist I was seeing at the time a written out version of my own life story, plus a list of patterns that I had noticed in my own behaviour. Now, I learned about my diagnosis from my mother aged 19, after humiliating myself at a student party. It took years to get used to it and get a proper sense of my strengths and weaknesses. In a way, it did offer a sense of relief for me, knowing there was a valid medical reason for my problems. Now, I think when it comes to a diagnosis, there is a need, in my opinion, for a verified medical opinion. Sometimes, with the length of wait to receive a medical diagnosis, a process that can often take years, people will do research on themselves and then self-diagnose. Now, I can understand why they do this. However, this can be problematic, as without medical advice, the risk of error is too high, especially given the similarity of autism to other conditions with which they may coexist. Now, the correct diagnosis is the first step towards managing the condition. There are, however, significant barriers to getting a diagnosis, and these can include a lack of access to services, cultural and language barriers, lack of understanding or awareness of what autism is and how it affects people, social and economic circumstances, such as homelessness or prison. Again, this is tied in again to lack of access to services. Addiction and mental health problems, which can often obscure the autism that can be lurking underneath them. Autism, I must say, is not a mental health problem, but it can become easily confused with one. Autistic people are sadly more likely to develop mental health problems than the general population, and in part because of this, many people, even today, are not diagnosed until the 30s or the 40s, until the middle aged, basically. So here are a few tips for support workers and employers. Now, if you are a support worker and suspect that someone you're working with is autistic, get it confirmed through a medical diagnosis, ideally via a psychologist, GP, or a social worker. If you're an employer and you suspect an employee is autistic and it is causing problems, carefully suggest to them that they get a diagnosis. Never just assume. If you are a support worker, a diagnosis will be a step on the way to helping your customer, people you're working with, to live independently. And if you're an employer, a proper diagnosis can help your employee address any issues that they might have in the workplace and improve their productivity. So these are the reasons I advise to people: get a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis. It makes understanding a whole lot easier. Thank you very much.